This is Generation Stadia, giving you that daily dose of everything and anything Stadia related, and it's about time we do some catch up on the channel as well as cover some of the more recent news. In order to do it efficiently, we're going to be putting it all under a Stadia news update, but as you know, before we dive into all of that, there's a few things I want to cover before we start. First up, I want to talk about SPITLINGS. As you know, this game has just launched and it's a first on Stadia title. It's one that I covered in yesterday's video and I really enjoyed. And if you're wondering why I'm talking about it today, well, I was actually given a key to give away to one lucky viewer, so if you're interested in winning a copy of SPITLINGS, then just comment down below what your favorite Stadia game is and why. I'll be selecting a winner at random in an upcoming video, so be sure to stay tuned to the channel to find out if you've won. And if you're interested in finding out more about the game, be sure to click on the annotation above where I break it down and give you my first impressions. Next up, I want to talk about another giveaway, but this one isn't being held on the channel, it's just one I want to bring more attention to. In case you haven't heard yet, Get Packed is another first on Stadia title, and the team behind the game is running their own giveaway where you can win one of 3 Stadia Premier Edition bundles. These bundles include the Chromecast Ultra, a Stadia controller, 3 months of Stadia Pro following the release of Get Packed, and a copy of Get Packed to play with your friends. Either way, I'll put a link to it in the description below if you want to sign up, and I'll also put a link to the terms and conditions if you want to double check what they are. But now it's time we dive into that news, and what better way to start it than by talking about next month's Stadia Pro games. In a previous video, I actually covered SteamWorld Dig 2 and SteamWorld Quest, so if you want to learn more about those games, then be sure to click on the annotation above. They are both critically acclaimed indie games and I highly recommend you go check them out because they're totally worth your time. With that said, they added a third game to that lineup and it's quite a big deal. You see, that third game is none other than Grid, a very solid title and easily my favorite Stadia game so far. Now, if you're wondering why exactly that's a big deal, well, Grid happens to be one of the few games that's trying to take advantage of the Stadia power by allowing 40-player races. This is a feature that's not available on any other version of the game, and it's always been on Stadia, but it's been kind of a hassle to get a race going with that many players. But now with it being a Stadia Pro game, there's going to be an influx of users, and they recently added a server browser, so it's going to be easier than ever to set up those 40-player races. Now, if you're interested in finding more users to race with, then be sure to join our community Discord. I'll put a link to it in the pinned comment of this video. There's already a few users who consistently race with one another, and I'm sure they'd be glad to have more. Do let me know what you think of this coming month's Stadia Pro lineup, but it's about time we do a little bit of catch up and move on to the next bit of news as we're going to be talking about the Android support added to Stadia. I know plenty of you are already aware of this, so I'll make it quick, but they recently added more Android phone support to the Google Stadia app, and that includes the Galaxy S8 through S20 Ultra lineup. And yes, that means every single variant, be it the Plus, Active, or Note phones. They've also added support for the Razer Phone and Phone 2, as well as the Asus ROG Phone and Phone 2. The only thing I'd like to add is that my experience in using my old S8 Plus as a dedicated mobile gaming device is going great, and so far I haven't run into any hitches. I'm very curious though, how has your experience been using Stadia without using a Pixel device? Has it worked perfectly for you, or have you run into problems? Anyways, let's move on to the next bit of news, and that happens to be a beta that seems to be happening very soon on Stadia. According to AndroidHeadlines.com, UPlay Plus is going to start the Stadia beta testing at the end of this month. The article goes on to say that the current name for it is Project WA, and the test will be held on either February 28th or the 29th. The beta is being handled by the Global Beta Test Network, but I do need to point out that I haven't signed up for the beta or the site because if I did, this would definitely be breaking an NDA. Either way, it seems like UPlay Plus is definitely getting the ball rolling, and if it's in beta testing, that means launch shouldn't be that far away. I seriously cannot wait for this service to be available on Stadia, but I'm extremely curious how they'll price it and what games will actually be supported day one. After all, we know games need to get ported over to Stadia, and I doubt that all of the UPlay Plus library that's available on PC or consoles is gonna find its way to the Stadia platform. In any case, I'm very curious. How much would you be willing to pay for UPlay Plus if it didn't include the entire catalog of games? Anyways, it's about time we move on to the last story in this Stadia news update, and that's a very recent interview with Jade Raymond, Aaron Hoffman-John, and Justin Lambros. Now, the entire interview is about 30 minutes long, and I'll be linking it in the description below if you want to see it for yourself, but I want to cover 3 things that I found very interesting. First up is the fact that they said that they would be announcing a new studio in a few weeks. It's always really good to see that Stadia Games and Entertainment is growing because having a solid first-party studio lineup is extremely important for any platform. And aside from this new studio that's yet to be announced, they already have people working in Mountain View, Tokyo, San Francisco, and Munich. This made me extremely happy to see because having a diverse group of people creating your games is also very important. Games out of Europe, Asia, and the Americas all stand out in their own right, and it's a perfect example of seeing that diversity really shine and bring something new to the table from each region. The second thing they were discussing is the whole idea of the cloud is your platform and how it's going to take time for developers to really understand how to grasp that concept. The reason I wanted to point this out is because the true potential of Stadia has yet to be seen. There are some major benefits it's going to have in the future. The fact that a game can be built from the ground up for a cloud platform means that they're not restricted to limitations that regular hardware would have. Unlike other streaming services out right now, Google's focus isn't on making games playable through the cloud, but making games with the cloud. This is the promise that Google has given us from the start, but they're making it very clear that it's going to take time for developers to really take advantage of it. It'll be very interesting to see where this technology leads us in just a few years. I can totally imagine most console manufacturers will start implementing it into their systems as well. And that leads to the third thing that I wanted to talk about in this video, and that's the fact that Google seems to be very aware that they need to output these titles that really showcase what this tech can do. They made a statement saying the following: "The biggest hurdle is content. I think all the exciting features that Stadia is bringing forth don't mean anything until you have games that utilize them and make them exciting for players. Especially in our group where we're making the games and responsible for bringing those things to life. We feel like we've really got to get cracking on get those awesome games that demonstrate these things out the door. Obviously, compared to a lot of companies that have been making games for a long time, we have a lot of work to catch up on, even with the basics, so it's really all about the content and getting the content that's the proof of how exciting the platform is." That statement alone gives me faith that they definitely know what the problem is and that they're working on it consistently to make sure that they can showcase what we all want to see. I will admit though, this does make it sound like there'll be quite some time before we see the true potential of Stadia used in its full, but that was pretty much a given, to be honest. But I think the more important thing is that this reaffirms Google's stance on Stadia and they see it as a very long-term project. The fact is that Google continues to heavily invest into Stadia Games and Entertainment, and they're fully aware of the time frame it's going to take to really see Stadia's potential realized. I think they've made it very clear from the start that it won't be that way, but here you go, yet another example of why this won't be the case. Anyhow, if you found any of this very interesting, I highly implore you to go watch the full interview. Once again, the link to it will be in the description below. And that pretty much wraps up this Stadia news update. If you have any feedback or comments, feel free to leave them below. I do actually read through all the comments, so any of it is very much appreciated. Now, if you enjoyed the video or found it helpful at all, be sure to hit that like button as it really does help the channel out. And if you're wanting more content like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. Today's end of video message is going to be a huge shout out and thank you to you, the viewer. This is for those of you who watch all the way through, like the video, and comment in on the discussion. I seriously can't thank all of you enough. I know I've been a bit inconsistent at times, but I'm trying to get things back on track to be providing you a steady stream of content for you to all enjoy. As some of you can tell, I've started to talk about other aspects of cloud gaming outside of Stadia, and I think every now and then I'll continue to do so. Outside of that, I've been playing around with the idea of at least once a week talking about something outside of cloud gaming because I just want to talk about something I'm plain old excited for. I'm gonna be going through with this sometime next week, so be sure to stay tuned for that, as I would really appreciate any and all feedback you have on that video. That being said, once again, I want to reaffirm everyone that I'll still have a huge Stadia focus on the channel. Last time I did this, some people took it the wrong way. Yes, the name is Generation Stadia, but I talk about everything and anything Stadia related, and that includes other cloud streaming platforms. Either way, once again, I just want to thank all of you who've supported me all the way through. It really means a lot, and I can't wait to keep pushing out this content. Especially now that Stadia seems to have the ball rolling and there's been a steady stream of news and info to talk about. Speaking of which, if you happen to be watching this as soon as it got posted on the channel, you got about an hour and 50 minutes before the worldwide gameplay reveal of Baldur's Gate 3, so it's about time we get hyped. Anyways, this has been Generation Stadia, giving you that daily dose of everything and anything Stadia related. The Gen S community is over 3,500 strong and growing by the day, and until next time, I'll catch you in the clouds.